All right, good afternoon, folks. My name is Jimmy Bashar with the ISO Stakeholder Affairs Group. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the OASIS and CMRI Applications Update Customer Partnership Group, or CPG for short. We have at this time Prince Philip and Swami Mahalia from our IT Product Management, along with its IT support team. As most of you may know, we've created the CPG series in response to our participants' request to have more involvement in our planning, design, and usability validation phases of our application development process. In turn, we try our best to make these an open and interactive forum with the goal of identifying opportunities to improve our customer experience for you. So we encourage, of course, everyone to share ideas, opinions, and provide any feedback about how we're doing with these meetings. And of course, you'll see at the bottom about how active participation is critical. So with that, I just want to thank you folks, of course, in advance for your engagement and participation in lieu of current events. So with that, as you can see, here's our agenda. Before I hand it off to Prince to start, we'll start by discussing our process improvements, which include our release notes and knowledge articles. Then we'll move on to the upcoming changes, which include the current variances, as well as the lessons learned from last year. And finally, how we expect to manage the different versions upcoming. And then we will dedicate the last portion of our call today for an open discussion in which we encourage any questions, of course, but specifically some high-level feedback would be great, as well as any ideas and details on any recent issues you may be experiencing. In addition, of course, calls and webinars are recorded for stakeholder convenience, allowing those who are unable to attend to listen to the recordings after the meetings. The recordings will be publicly available on the ISO webpage for a limited time following the meetings. Of course, the recordings and any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. And lastly, of course, folks, we do encourage verbal questions only. And any chat questions that we do see, we'll be sure to get to them after any verbal questions were raised. You can raise your hand to ask a question by pressing #2 to get inside the queue. And for everyone, we ask that you please state the name and the company that you represent. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Prince.
Hey, thank you, Jimmy. First of all, thank you for everybody who's joined us on this call today. I also want to take a moment and I really hope that everyone on this call is doing what they can to stay healthy with everything that's going on. And if you are currently sheltering in place and have additional time on hand, and if you're just looking for interesting things to do, I'd encourage that you all go to our OASIS site and browse through all of the data that we have available there. With that now, let me move into our presentation for the day. First off, we're going to talk about some of the process improvements that we've applied to both the OASIS and the CMRI product line. So Jimmy, if you can give me slide 5. We have now started creating release notes for the last, I want to say, 6 months or so. Essentially, this is our opportunity for our customers to know what changes have been implemented on both our CMRI as well as on our OASIS application with each patch that goes to production. So we want to create as much transparency as possible so that you have an understanding of the changes that are being deployed into our production environment. The slide that we're seeing right now shows you at a high level the scope of some of the content that has been posted to some of our recent CMRI release notes. Page on the CMRI release notes themselves are posted on our developer site. You can access our developer.kaizo.com site, click on CMRI under the applications, and then navigate to the release notes. That page will host all of the release notes that go along with each and every patch that gets deployed to our production environment. Our latest release notes on CMRI talk about some patches that went in relating to 2 of our recent implementations, one related to the commitment costs and the default energy bids enhancements, and one related to the reliability coordinator RC West goal. If we go to page 6, this is the similar approach that we've been following for OASIS as well. where we have been posting our release notes. Again, navigation-wise, it would be very similar to how you would have navigated for CMRI. You'd go to the developer site. From there, you would click on OASIS as an app, and then navigate to release notes. And then from there, you would access the release notes itself. Some of the examples that I've posted show you the details related to some of the patches that we've recently deployed on OASIS. Though that's one of the process improvements that we've implemented. Another one that we have is with knowledge articles. Jimmy, if you can give us slide 7. Thank you. So we've been hearing a lot of questions that have been coming from our customer base on functionality that's either a question related to navigation or questions related to data and why data appears at certain times, why data does not, and so on. So what we've been going down is a path of creating knowledge articles. Knowledge articles are little FAQ documents, if you will, that are posted on our customer inquiry interface known as CITI. I'm going to transfer over to Mark Richardson now so he can give us a little bit of background on knowledge articles in general.
Thank you, Prince. And just to confirm, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, Mark. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate that, Prince. So, yeah, knowledge articles we introduced late 2018. We now have north of 300-plus articles published. The customer representatives use your guys' city cases as commonly asked questions and things like that, and then work with the subject matter experts to get those answers. And then anything that we could generalize, we go ahead and publish as a knowledge article. So these knowledge articles are really there for you guys to kind of self-help, get quicker answers to those questions. And since today's topic is about OASIS and CMRI, those are actually a pretty high level of questions that we get as it relates to that category. So as you can see here where it says browse by category, we actually have an OASIS and CMRI category. And with that, let me show you guys a example of a knowledge article. And before we hop over there, the featured article will always be the latest article that we publish. And then the trending articles are the top 5 articles that have the most clicks. So Jimmy, if you don't mind, can you please hop to slide 8, please? So this is what it looks like, and what we do is we took an example of an OASIS knowledge article. You guys will see the question, the solution, any associated references. We always do our best to include those links, which BPM, which section, which tariff section did we get that from, which presentation or training material did we get that from, and then any associated attachment as it relates to screenshots. You also have the ability to rate the article, you know, with a thumbs up or thumbs down. And then the city system is smart enough to know the related articles that you see over here on the right-hand side. As you can see, a lot of these are related to either OASIS and or CMRI reports that are available to you. And it also shows you how many times that particular article has been viewed. Now, you have to have access to City in order to be able to view these knowledge articles. Customer service is partnering with IT, hopefully Q4, Q1 next year for the public users, where our current Contact Us page is. We hope to have a public knowledge base available to those, and we'll make sure to represent that in the associated RUG and TUG calls as we get closer to that release. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if anybody has any questions as it relates to knowledge articles.
Thanks, Mark. I do believe we have a couple folks in the queue. Operator, feel free to in the queue.
As we move to Q&A, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. You'll hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please state your name and question. Once again, pressing #2 will indicate that you wish to ask a question. We do have a question. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Yeah, this is Seth with DC Energy. I have a quick question. These knowledge articles, are they going to span all sorts of questions, or are these more of just issues with OASIS postings, or do they span like all market impacting items?
Great question. And Jimmy, if you don't mind hopping back one previous slide, and to answer your question, sir, it really covers a variety of topics. It covers application access, as you can imagine how many questions we get in that space, bidding and scheduling, demand response, EIM, general. So things that we didn't really have a bucket for, we've kind of lumped in this general category: market solution, RC, resource adequacy, and then settlements and metering. So we have a lot of topics, a lot of knowledge articles out there that cover quite a bit. That search area there is a keyword search. So if you're looking for something related to access, you could just type access there, and what that's going to do is it's going to render all the knowledge articles that are related to access. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Well, so settlement issues will be there too.
Yeah, so we have been partnering with the settlements team and getting some of those settlement-related knowledge articles out there. Since this is all participants have access to these knowledge articles, we have to be careful with kind of what we're sharing in those answers. As you can imagine, a lot of settlement items are unique to that particular scenario and trade date. So we do our best to kind of generalize what we can. If you do have some questions or thoughts on knowledge articles where you feel, hey, the following topics would be great to be covered, feel free to submit a city case suggesting that, and we'd be more than happy to see what we can do to accommodate you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any further questions on the phone.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Jimmy, do you mind going to slide 9? Oh, I'm sorry, did we have another question?
Thank you, Mark. I think that was me just trying to keep us moving.
Oh, okay. I think slide 9 was another example of a few more articles that we have out there.
Right. And Swami, can you give some detail around maybe one or two of these examples that we have here on slide 9?
Sure. I'm waiting for the slide to move. Are you guys seeing the slide 9?
I'm sorry, let me put the slide. I think
Sure.
Jimmy was having some trouble, so.
Sure, no problem.
Not sure why they're there.
Please go ahead.
Yep, thank you. So as Mark just explained, knowledge articles does have a lot of information. Just we got some of the examples which you can see that you can really query these knowledge articles and get some answers around that. It really helps you to reduce your time to find answers, to going through the CT system, the entire process of getting to your customer service agent and to Kaizo internally. This gives you ready-made answers to most of the questions. For example, I'm going to talk about the bullet point 3, missing Kaizo demand forecast data for real-time market. There are a lot of CD tickets saying that, hey, we are missing data for the demand forecast for certain period or intervals. How do we get this data back? But really, if you go and see this knowledge article, during this time, we were doing an upgrade. A patch was applied to the market system. During that time frame, the systems were down. We are not publishing the demand forecast data. That's why we were missing data for that particular interval, which cannot be backfilled because the system, the market system itself was down because of the maintenance, and we are doing some enhancement and patch applying. So we could not publish the data to the other end. So that's one of the examples. Instead of writing tickets through the CD system, if we go to the knowledge article, you can find some answers which will really help you to get the solution quickly. That's about, one of the examples on slide 9. Move on to slide 10, please.
Thank you, Swami.
Prince, back to you.
So now we're going to shift gears and start looking at some of the upcoming changes that we have projected out for OASIS and CMRI. Can we go to slide 11? On slide 11, what we've listed is our backlog of known production variances for both our CMRI and our OASIS product. Please note that as we deploy any patch that has the fixes for these known issues, we would be releasing our release notes, and you will obviously have more details as to what the exact nature of the issue itself was. As we've listed out there, CMRI has a total of 7 variances, and OASIS has a total of 5 variances that are pending deployment into production. Many of these variances are in varying statuses internally. Some of those are with our development team as they are working on fixes. Some of these are currently in our testing environment and are getting queued up for a deployment into production shortly. We've also provided for you a listing of what the definitions are for each of the severities, so you have more context as to how we're bucketing up these issues, as well as the priority in which we will be working these issues. If we move to slide 12, I'd like to spend some time looking at some of the lessons that we learned from some of our exercises in 2019. So last year, we performed a major stack upgrade early on in the year in order to address some of the performance concerns that we had been hearing from some of our customers, as well as from our own technology perspective. We just wanted to upgrade our stack for our security reasons, to be staying ahead on the technology curve, and so on. What we went through was a process where we determined that because these were primarily performance-related and technology matters, we made an assumption that we did not have to go through a market simulation exercise per se. And what we learned from having gone through the production was that we saw a large number of CD cases coming in, mostly attributed to just a handful of root causes. But what we realized was that those select root causes have had a large impact to a large number of our customers, and could potentially have been avoided if we had performed a market simulation effort on OASIS, similarly for CMRI as well, though the issues really were around OASIS itself. And that's been a good learning moment for us from 2019, where we had thought that because these were primarily technology upgrades, we thought it would be agnostic to the customer base, but what we realized was that there are usage patterns that certain customers have that weren't necessarily apparent to us when we went into our planning phase. We wanted to put it out there that we realized that a market simulation exercise, even for these kind of issues, would be much beneficial. So we have that realization, and we've been encouraging on our public rug calls and tug calls for additional changes that have come in through the year for more active participation. So I wanted to use this as a moment to do that outreach to all of you on the call as well, to encourage you to join hands with us when we get into these kind of test exercises. Just to give additional context around the number of CD cases that we saw, like I said, they were attributed primarily to a handful of root causes, largely around the fact that corrupted or empty files were being created in certain high load conditions. We also realized that because OASIS does not have a named user community, because OASIS by nature currently is public access with unnamed users, it limits our ability to do proactive outreach to select users of the application that we have today. So that was another thing that actually stood out to us. Jimmy, can we move to slide 13? Other matters that we've been looking at from our learnings from 2019 is that while we saw a huge surge in the number of issues that we were dealing with, we also realized that some of those could be attributed back to the fact that some of our customers were working on versions of APIs that we weren't officially supporting. Now, to give everybody some background, the ISO standard policy itself is to support 2 versions of any service in our production environment. The objective behind that is to put out the newest version of our service or of our API and hope that all of our customers would move to the new service. But we also understand that sometimes it takes more time for some of our customers to adopt changes to services, and we've always wanted to give our customer base some time to catch up to the newest version. So that's why we always have a version that's current in production, and we continue to support the version -1. So our customers have enough time to transition to the newest version. However, we have not been effectively enforcing that policy in the past, and so we have certain services where we have multiple versions supported, and I want to say up to 3 or in certain instances 4 versions that are available to our customer base. When we go into our test exercise, we're always looking to optimize our effort in terms of cost as well as in terms of overall effort itself. And so our focus has been on ensuring that the functionality works with the current production version as well as with our version -1. We have not been paying as much attention to our prior versions because we've come from this perspective that our customers have probably moved on to that in line with our ISO standard policy. What we've learned from the large number of CD cases from 2019 was that we have many customers who are still on what we've been deeming as unsupported versions, so like a version -3 or a version -4 and so on. And what we're going to do is to get into a model where we can better enforce that. So Jimmy, if you can move us on to slide 14. So applying some of the controls from these lessons that we've learned, as I alluded to earlier, we're going to engage participants for simulation exercises, for technology upgrades, and not make an assumption that these are going to be transparent necessarily to the customers. We've also put in place technical controls on our side where OASIS and CMRI will, to a large extent, self-heal, meaning when it finds files that are corrupt information or no data or missing files and so on, we have alerts that are firing for our IT teams to perform root cause investigation, but also performs a self-healing where it deletes the file and auto-generates a valid file. So those are some of the controls that we've implemented. Moving on to slide 15. Our plan ahead is to, as I mentioned earlier, is to enforce a policy where we would support only 2 versions of services. We intend to have an updated technical specification, which will clearly indicate the supported and the deprecated versions. Our goal is to have the revised technical specifications with that information available by the end of May, 5/29, and then give all of our customers enough time to move off of those to the deprecated versions. And then in our production environments, we plan to truly deprecate these unsupported versions by September 1st of this year. What we'd like to encourage everybody on this call is to start as soon as possible migrating yourselves to the latest supported versions of our services so that you don't have to wait for these technical specifications to be made available. You can look at what the latest version is and then start that movement already. We're also looking at identifying patterns to embed information related to events that are resulting in failed market event intervals. So for example, if there's a failed market interval for, say, either a planned maintenance or an unplanned outage on the market side, we're looking at how we can make that information available to you so that when you query for the data in both the API and the UI, you will see that there was a market interval failure, and that's why you're not seeing the data. So you don't have to worry if CMRI itself is broken. You'll have better transparency on that. We're going to get into slide 16 to talk about how you would get more information about the version management, but I'm going to pause and give folks maybe a minute or two to ask any questions that we have now. Bear in mind that Swami on slide 16 onwards will be talking through more about how to get information about the supported versions and so on.
As a reminder, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. We do have a question. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Chanila from PG&E. Hi, Prince. Thank you. I really appreciate that you shared the lesson learned from 2019. So historically, I'm going to bring this up again. We usually have a spring release that is dedicated to the technology upgrade and enhancements. I understand that we no longer, CAISO no longer do that. Is there any plan that we can maybe do it every other year, or is it have a dedicated time, like time frame, that we understand it's going to be focused on the technology upgrade?
Sure. So off late, for the last couple of years or so, our spring releases have been primarily around EIM entities going live and rolling out technology changes that typically do not have a customer impact. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2019, we made the assumption that this was a similar exercise and should have been transparent to the customer, and so we're more aware of what that means now. So anything that we think requires more customer engagement would be bundled up so that you have an opportunity to perform a market sim as independently as possible so that we can still continue to make these changes.
Okay, thank you. And I do have a second question. So you show some slides focused on some of the production issues. What about, I do understand CAISO just newly create a folder in the developer side, gathering the enhancement ideas from market participants. So are you guys planning to incorporate the idea that in that folder, that show up in the folder, and maybe share with everyone, maybe in the technical course, whether you plan to do a, an upgrade or enhancement based on the customer's request?
Thank you, Juni, for raising that. Yes, the intent would be that as we get ideas for how we can better improve our products and the CPG, and really as we move further towards around slide 21 area, you'll see that we're really asking for our customers to give us more ideas and give us a better understanding of some of the usage patterns that you have so we can continue to tweak our applications as we go. The intention would be that as we bring up technical changes, we will present that at the TUG as well, because the TUG gives us a different audience as well, where we definitely want to communicate what additional changes that we're doing. Yeah, so technical changes will definitely be discussed at the TUG.
Thank you. So I do recall either last year or the year before, I believe I entered a lot of enhancement requests for OASIS. I don't know what happened to it, and I can't find them on the CAISO website. So I just wonder if you have a database, have the information, then maybe you're able to move those into the enhancement request folder.
Mark, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I would have to see which avenue was used to submit those enhancements, and then I'm assuming you submitted those via city. Is that a safe assumption?
There is this website. I want to say that almost specific to the application. I have to, I just thought about that, and I have to look back.
Feel
I
free to
might
reach out to
have,
your customer service rep. We'll be
yes,
happy to.
I believe Ginger was on that email.
Okay. So I report to Ginger, so I will follow up with Ginger and reach out to you offline.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Operator, do we have other callers as well?
No. Yes. Just now there is a caller. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Yeah, it's Seth again with DC Energy. I had a question going back to slide 11 where you showed the variance counts, the variance defects for CMRI and OASIS. Do you currently publish those defects anywhere?
Those variances are not published externally right now. The model that we have right now is as a defect itself is getting ready to deploy to production. When we've staged it and ready to deploy to production, we include that in a release note so you know what's coming up in a fix.
Okay, so we can look in the release notes to find those.
Correct. The release note will tell you specifically for each patch which defects have been addressed and give you a business description of the defect itself.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to the next caller. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Mike Kramer from Boston Energy. I have a general question, and I'm sorry if someone asked this, but I had to step away for a minute. Does the ISO have any plans to expand the APIs for the CMRI application? My understanding is not all of the CMRI reports have an API, and we're hoping that the ISO can make APIs available for all the reports that are posted under CMRI.
Hey, this is Prince here. I think that's definitely something for us to look at. What would be most helpful is if you can provide a listing of the high-value reports so that we have a sense of what priority order we could look at. Right? So assuming, I don't know, let's say 30% of our reports do not have an API, then we don't want to tackle all 30% in one go. It might be a matter of focusing on the top high-value 5% first before we move to the next. So if you can give us some feedback around which ones are most frequently used or where you're pulling large volumes of data, that'll give us a good idea of what priority order to work them in.
Great. I will get those together in a city ticket and send it over.
Thank you, Mark.
We don't have any further questions.
All right, thank you. Swami, can you walk us through slides 16 onwards?
Sure, Prince. Thank you. So moving on to slide 16. So currently we have the tech spec located at our developers.iso.com site under OASIS application. And then you can navigate through tech spec area. You can find the latest tech spec located at that point. And also, as Prince talked about, we have multiple versions currently supported on our production. Our goal was to run a program internally on our environment to find out what are different versions that currently we are supporting on our production environment. So we did that. The exercise got completed. And if you see, we have two Excel files. One is for single zip. The other one is for group zip. So we have uploaded both of them into developer website under tech spec area. The exact same file name you can find if you go there. If you open, you can see there are different reports and services with multiple versions listed. This is just to give you an idea, how many different versions we support. Moving forward, we want to get to a point where we only support the latest two versions with the timeline that we already talked about in the previous slides. Moving on to the next one now, slide 17, please. Yeah, this is a snapshot, just to give you an idea. how we are currently, in OASIS for single zip file. We took an example for the Intel LMP report. I want you guys to focus on the marked box in the center, and that is, if you see this, the Excel sheet I pulled, you may see a null on your left side. Please ignore that. That's just I removed from the Excel sheet to accommodate into this space. And the box where I'm highlighting, you can see we have 3 versions for report, Intel LMP and HASP LMP, which currently we are supporting on our system. So if somebody is querying our services with one of these 3 versions, you are going to get a response back. But moving forward, when we go to the 9/1 deadline, we will support only, say, 2 and 3. The 1 may be deprecated. The latest 2 versions will be supported. So there is a logical reason why we want to do this, because as we apply or fix some defects or we do some enhancements, we see a lot of CDTKs, we change something, then we release a new version. If, as a customer, you don't move to the latest version, you are going to lose out on those new functionalities. Or you may still see the old defects that are coming in an older version. So our goal is to help our customers to move to the latest 2 versions. So this is one of the examples how currently we are supporting more than 2. So moving on to the next slide, please. It's a similar example. It's for the group SIP. For the HASP LMP report, you can see again here we have 3 versions that we support, on our environment. Moving on to the next slide, please. So there is other, variants that we see is, even though we say in our tech spec, you can see in the bottom of the slide, we got these screenshots on the tech spec. We have only 2 versions that we're supposed to support, version 1 and version 3. But still we provide support to 3 versions for this particular report. Even though it is version 2 is deprecated, we still honor the request from the customer. You get a response back when you query. So that means we need to update our tech spec with the latest supported version, which will have only 2 versions. The goal is to get that done by 29th of May. So once you have the tech spec updated, that become our single source of information where you can see the latest 2 versions by service that we will be supporting from 9/1 onwards. But you can see the tech spec available to you by May end. We can move on to the next one, please. On CMRI side, we are in compliance with the 2 versions. We only support the latest 2 versions CMRI, so we don't have any issue. There is no change on the CMRI side. So whatever we talked about, moving on to latest 2 versions is only applicable to OASIS. All CMRI existing services are up to date, supporting the latest 2 versions, and you can find the tech spec by following the developers.kaiser.com, go to CMRI apps, and then you can navigate to tech spec location to find out the latest tech spec. Moving on to the next slide, please. I think back to you, Prince, now.
Sure. Thank you, Swami. So again, just to wrap up that part, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Our ask is that you spend between now and September 1st to move your services to the latest supported version of OASIS. And the current tech spec that is out there on developer.kaiser.com for OASIS already shows you the versions. If you take for any service and look at the latest version number, you should be able to identify which one will be the end state as of September 1st. However, like I said earlier, by 5/29 this year, we plan to provide an updated tech spec which clearly denotes which version will be deprecated as well. So it's a little bit more clearer. But take between now and September 1st to definitely move forward to the latest supported version so that come September 1st when we deprecate these unsupported versions, you won't be left in hot water, I guess. All right, so now I'll open up the line for questions, but before that, let me also give some context of the content that we have on page 21. and then we'll open it up so that there's a broader discussion about where we want to take OASIS and CMRI next. So over the last year or a little over a year, we've been hearing some feedback generically about customers wanting to improve their usability on OASIS, certain instances where customers told us that it takes too long to load the data. There's been requests for wanting to pull more data at a time, missing or incorrect data, and then data in OASIS being inconsistent with data in CMRI. So this is a gist of, or a summary of some of the feedback that we've gotten in the past from our customers. Last year, and also last year, we put in many changes to try and make OASIS as robust as possible. That addresses the OASIS data being inconsistent. We talked about what we did with data missing and incorrect at times. We've also talked to you about the fact that we did a performance improvement, which showed us significant performance improvements, which addresses the data taking too long to load. And so we've made a lot of investment in both OASIS and CMRI. And I'd like to use the rest of this call to hear from everybody on this call about some of the recent experiences that you have so that we can see if there's additional tweaks that we can make to the application and also try to lay out our roadmap of where we want to go next. So with that, again, like what we're looking for is recent examples and as specific as possible so that it becomes a lot more actionable for us. For example, XYZ report is hard to access, or ABC report takes too long to load, so that we have more targeted feedback and we can address that specific area as possible. So with that, operator, if you could open the line up for dialogue, that'll be helpful.
Sure. As a reminder, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. We do have a question. Please go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
This is Seth with DC Energy again. I don't have a question, but just to provide you with feedback on certain variances that we're seeing or missing data. I have 2 CD tickets that are currently open. One is regard to transmission usage data. It's not available in OASIS, and another one about a constraint flag that's used to, looking here, it's used to show what's binding, what constraints are binding in day-ahead market, and that one's also been deferred. So those are 2 issues that we've noticed where there's a technical defect either of content or missing content that we've put forward in the past. And some of these are, one of them's 3 years old and the other one's about, I'd say 6 months old. So we would like to see changes to those.
Mark, would you be able to help us offline after this call by looking into what the CD case numbers are so we can get to the bottom of where they are?
Yeah. Hey, Seth, Mark Richardson. You know my contact information. If you have those city ticket numbers readily available, go ahead and send them to me. If not, I could just search under your name for those tickets.
Okay, I'll send them to you. It'll be easy. I'm looking at them right now. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you both.
And
thank you both.
We don't have any further questions. As a reminder, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. You'll hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please state your name and question. Once again, pressing #2 will indicate that you wish to ask a question. We don't have any further questions as of now.
Yeah, and
can you give a few more minutes for people to get their thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah, and if you guys don't mind, so after this call, if you participants come up with any items, any issues, comments you would like to make based on today's discussion, please submit that city case and we'll make sure to get it in front of Prince's team for review, comment, and provide you guys feedback via city as well.
We do have a caller. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Oh, hi, this is Phil Dong with AGX. I do have a comment, not a question. With regard to the publication of OASIS prices, I think Mark is aware of this issue that our team have been submitting and discussing multiple times with you guys. The problem I have is that when the republication of some data set for prices, the ISO doesn't update the publication list in that file, because we rely on that file to know when a new data being posted and repull. For example, if you have a missing data or an interval somewhere the first time around, and then a later time when you republish that data, the data being pre-published on the XML version, but the publication list doesn't get updated, so we can't bring that in. We don't know when that data is being reposted and can bring in. Secondly, there are some discrepancy between data between XML and version. Sometimes we know that the data set is being published on the XML, and sometimes the same set on the same hour is not the equivalent. And we speak about it quite a few times. I don't directly talk to Mark on this, but I was planning to. Are you guys aware of that issue?
So which report are you talking about, the discrepancy between the XML and the UI?
The report is if you go to OASIS right now, right, and you under the last reference, which is the first link on the left-hand side, and then as you go down to the second on the menu, which say publication and revision, that list itself basically inform us what being published and what being pushed.
Right. Thank you. I think on your comment, I think you had two items that you talked about. The first, I agree, sounds like a reasonable usability improvement that we could put in place on our application so that you have a better awareness of what data was published when. The other component where you talked about discrepancy between XML and the UI, I'd like to see if that's specific to a certain report.
I could pull in the CD that we submit, or we submit the CD ticket. The issue we found is quite often, and I think the most important thing, I think happen all the time is the first issue. The issue is the data being reposted and not reflected on that list. And that list drives our download, because we don't want to push requests to you guys all the time. That will be a burden on your server. We're waiting for you to tell us when the data is loaded, and then we pull. But if that list doesn't get updated, then we have to try all the time, which is not good for both of us.
I agree. That's why I was saying that I think it sounds like a very useful usability improvement that we can make on the ISO side that will probably give its own inadvertently, some performance improvements too, because we'll have less people who are constantly hitting the system as well. So I think it's a good suggestion.
Sounds good. So is this a no issue on your end, or?
About not making the republish data available, the fact that the data has been republished there?
Yeah.
I don't think we've built it to do that. It could be off though. Eureka, would you know for sure?
Oh, hi. We should have, this is Eureka. We should have that in place currently. So if you have a specific report that you're seeing this issue, if you have that city ticket, not now, but you could send it to Mark, or your client rep will need to look into that. But by default, any report publication we have for every report should be posted in the publication and revision log that last report.
Yeah.
And Eureka, that's for republish as well?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
my expectation. Design our system based on that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so please let us know the specific report and we'll look into that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
There are no further questions as of now. As a reminder, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. You'll hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please state your name and question. Once again, pressing #2 will indicate that you wish to ask a question. We do have a question right now. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is muted.
Hi, this is Chen Yu from PG&E. Yes, one last question. So what is the most effective way when we want to open, when we want to make a suggestion for enhancement? The CD ticket, or shall we put the idea into the enhancement request folder?
I'd say you should put in a CD ticket. That way it gives us an opportunity to track it individually.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have any further questions as of now. As a reminder, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. There are no further questions as of now.
All right, Jimmy, do you want to wrap us up?
This is Isabella. I can go ahead and wrap up. Jimmy had to deal with something. If we could go to the next slide. So if there are any follow-up questions or if you'd like to suggest any future topics, you can contact your client representative or submit a city ticket. But I just want to open it up for any last questions before we conclude. Are there any questions in the queue?
And also
there are no further questions on the phone, but there is a question on the chat. Do you want to take that?
Sure. Before we go there, I'd just like to remind that in our market notice, we had also said that we are open to getting written feedback up until the 28th. So that is still another option as well. And let's go to that chat question.
Sure. It says, would the knowledge articles answer a question like what historical dates are available in OASIS? Or alternatively, how can we find out what historical dates are available in different OASIS reports?
So this is Mark, and I could comment on that if you don't mind, Prince. So we do have a knowledge article that discusses retention policy, which is 39 months in OASIS. With that being said, the retention policy has not been applied to, I believe there's 68 plus reports now in OASIS to all of those reports. So some of those reports today will have more than 39 months of data, while IT continues its process to kind of roll that data off. I would ask Eureka or Prince if it's possible to provide a list of reports that have more than 39 months and when we anticipate kind of rolling that off so that participants can go out and pull that data ahead of time.
Mark, I think it's a good question that came through the chat window, and I agree with your suggestion. We'll go ahead and then compile a list so that we can put together a knowledge article or something to that effect that shows what the data retention window per app is, per report is, and it'll probably say something along the lines of 36 months. So it's going to be a rolling window so customers can stay tuned to that.
Yep, and then based on that, we'll go ahead and get a knowledge article out there for participants to view. Thank you, Prince.
Have any questions coming in queue?
There are no further questions on the phone. As a reminder, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue.
Prince, did you have anything before we wrap up?
I think we're good. I just want to thank everybody for joining us on the call this afternoon, and hope everybody stays safe and healthy.
All right. That concludes today's call. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Services. You may now disconnect.